Good morning, guys. Welcome back to another episode on the Fantasy Fellowship channel. My name's Kyle. In this video, we're gonna be hanging out for maybe the next half hour, 45 minutes, and we're just gonna be pouring over the player prop bets here over on DraftKings Sportsbook. We'll take a peek at each game and just kind of show you guys what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking feels right. We'll upload a bunch of picks to the website as well. We do not do very great last week. We only hit on one of our touchdown prop bets. So we're going to probably spread it out a little bit and maybe go for some more yardage and some more interesting things. But I do have the link in the description. You guys can see all the spreads, all the totals. And then I loaded up a bunch of props to consider. So if you want to look at those as well. But again, we're going to cover all these here. So let's just hop right into it. The first game here on the slate is the Dolphins at the Ravens. This is a fun, interesting game, potential playoff matchup type between the two here. Dolphins, or I guess the Ravens, favored to win by 3.5. 44.5 implied in this one. Looking at the touchdown scores here to start, I got to think Mark Andrews is going to be in for a touchdown. He didn't score last week. I would bet he's probably got a good chance to score every other week. So I think Mark Andrews, definitely a guy you want to slap on the touchdowns. We're watching to see if J.K. Dobbins is active in this one. I'm not sure I want to start him in fantasy or DFS or anything like that. I want to watch the usage and see what happens, but it is a very good sign that he's the second-ranked player here for touchdown odds. And then you can probably get that first Lamar Jackson rushing touchdown in there too. I think those two touchdowns stick out to me. If the Dolphins are going to score, it's probably Tyreek Hill. Jalen Waddle got it last week. So those are probably the three touchdown scores that I like in this game. Moving on to the passing props. I don't know if I love the passing props in this one. Both defenses are pretty stout. I know the Ravens are kind of banged up in their secondary, which I kind of like Tyreek Hill. I'm okay with Jalen Waddle. So yeah, I'm not sure I love these passing props. They got Lamar at 232, Tua at 254. They're taking Tua over. I guess it's interesting. They're not saying Lamar Jackson's going to get 2 touchdowns. They're thinking Tua could get 2 touchdowns passing. So that does interest me a little bit. But let's look at the rushing receiving props. And Justin's saying Tua down to 7.5 rushing yards. Yeah, he just doesn't do that very often. So, but he could get that in just one play. That's why I don't really love doing that. And if this game's coming down to the wire, anything can happen. I do think Lamar Jackson at 53.5 is interesting. What did he do last week? Lamar Jackson, FF today. Let me see. Last week he puts up only 17 rushing yards. So we could see Lamar Jackson kind of get loose in this one. Again, usually when a player doesn't do so well that first week, I kind of want to come back to him in the second week here. So I'm interested in Lamar over 53.5. But let's look at these receiving props here. Chase Edmonds, this is the first one that I really, really feel strongly about. Chase Edmonds is just at 22.5 passing yards. And if we look at on the fantasyfellowship.com, I do have 2022 fantasy points allowed. Let's just look at what the Ravens allowed last week to the Jets running backs. Kind of a lot of PPR points here. Where are we? So they allowed 13 receptions and 78 yards to Breece Hall and Michael Carter. I think when you have a good team that can rush the passer and get to the quarterback, you're probably going to be looking at those pass catching running backs, and that's Chase Edmonds in this one. I just want to look and see what was Chase Edmonds up to last week. So he goes 4 for 40, and they're giving us a layup here at this prop, 22.5 minus 115. I feel very strongly about this one. And then, you look at his receptions. People are smashing the over here on 2.5. Like he's going to get more than 2.5 receptions. So I think those two are one of the almost the for sure things that are going to happen. So I like Edmonds over 22.5. Let's look here. They got Jalen Waddle at 59.5, and they got Tyreek Hill at 70.5. I'm trying to think, how did that game go last week? The Ravens, they kind of limited the receiving trio over there for New York. So I don't know if I feel strongly about the yardage props here. I think I would sit with Tyreek Hill because he did dominate those the targets here. So I think that's the one that makes sense to me. Mark Andrews at 61.5. I think that could be over as well. Again, if I'm going to pick one prop here from this list, it's Chase Edmonds, 22.5. Again, people are smashing that over there. They have Waddle over under at 5.5 receptions. They got Tyreek at the same 5.5. I think Tyreek's going over there. It is minus 160, so it's not super great returns, but that one does feel pretty good. And then they got Mark Andrews here at 5.5, and they have him. People are smashing the under, so they don't think he's going to get 6 catches, which I think he could. Last week, did he not get 5 catches last week? Let me see. And keep in mind, like last week was not a very competitive game. And you see Mark Andrews comes in with 5 for 52 on 7 targets. I mean, I think that's kind of his floor. You have a pretty good chance to win this one. Again, this game's going to be more competitive. And I thought the Dolphins allowed, what did the Dolphins do last week against the tight end? Against the tight end last week, Miami allowed 5 for 53 against the who did they play last week? Against the Patriots tight ends. I think Mark Andrews is in a tier in his own. So that's kind of your floor for Mark Andrews. I think he's going to hit that prop of, and that's a fun one because it is, people are taking the under here. I might take the over at plus 120. So I'm interested in that one. Rushing receiving numbers. I don't know if I feel greatly about these. But that's it. We'll stick with that. Yeah, the Conklin one. That was the next one right here. So Tyler Conklin sitting at, we didn't get to the Jets game yet, but we'll go to the Jets game now. So let's cover this one. Jets Browns, man. I think this one's going to be a fun one for the rushing guys here. You got Nick Chubb at minus 140 for a touchdown. He's simply going to score. He's like the layup pick. So if you want to take him for some free money, I'm just curious if you throw $25 on that one, you'll make about 18, 17 bucks. Not terrible. Kareem Hunt though here at plus 105. That one feels pretty good too. He did get the 2 touchdowns last week. As far as any other Browns or Jets in this game, I don't think you can responsibly bet on anybody. But Conklin, he caught the touchdown last week. He's plus 310, and I don't think CJ Uzomah is going to play. As far as the quarterbacks, this is probably the ugliest quarterback duo squaring off in week 2 here. I think we could probably just avoid this here. Nobody's throwing 2 touchdown passes, and I think both quarterbacks hover around 200 yards. So it's interesting. And yeah, the backs. The other thing too is like, sure, Nick Chubb's minus 140 to score, but he's only at 83.5 rushing yards. That one feels pretty good to me. Again, last week, Nick Chubb going up against the Carolina Panthers, he played pretty well. I mean, he got the ball 22 times for 141 yards. So it's kind of like, what are we doing here? Nick Chubb at 83.5 in a game where the Browns are probably going to run the ball 35, 40 times between Hunt and Chubb. So I think you get the ball Nick Chubb 20 times, he's going to hit his 83.5 rushing prop. So I like that one. Kareem Hunt, kind of a sneaky one here, but I think I'd rather take Nick Chubb. Probably best to avoid the Michael Carter and the Breece Hall rushing props. Maybe we look at their receiving numbers here. Let's see. So receiving yards, I wish you could filter by like most to least or something like that. But they have Elijah Moore here to lead the game at 50.5. Again, I don't know if I can recommend betting on Jets receiving props. I think Elijah Moore versus Denzel Ward's a pretty big matchup here. He held DJ Moore in check last week, so maybe the under on Elijah Moore at 50.5. Garrett Wilson, I think I feel kind of good about that one. 30.5 here. He could do that in 2 or 3 catches. What are people betting on Wilson? People are taking the over on 2.5 catches. So if he gets to 3 catches, the chances that he gets 10 yards per catch are pretty dang good. So I kind of like the Garrett Wilson one here. Amari Cooper, 42.5. We're not touching. Breece Hall at 18.5. I think he could get the receiving volume that he needs for that. But the interesting thing is Michael Carter is only at 18.5 as well. So I'm going to take the guy that is going to be on the field more targets, more routes run. Michael Carter, 18.5. Over under for his receiving total. And where is Michael Carter here? Michael Carter, last week he had 9 targets, 7 for 40. So that one feels pretty dang good here. And then Tyler Conklin sitting at 27.5 for his yardage total prop. But people are smashing the over on him at 2.5 receptions. So that one's kind of a free square if you want. I think he's going to be busy. Again, the Browns have a really good secondary here. You might see more targets to the backs and to the tight end again as well. So I'm interested in Conklin here. But otherwise, I think this game's probably not the most exciting game to bet on. So let's move on to – I want to move on to a more fun game here. This is the Washington Commanders in the Detroit Lions here. 48 implied in this one. Lions favored to win for the first time in like 24, 25 games, I believe. Favored to win by 1.5, and that game's tightened up. I think it opened up at 2.5 for the Lions. I saw it come down to 1. Now it's back at 1.5. So we'll watch that one. I think there's going to be, again, 48.5 implied in this one. There's probably going to be 5-6 touchdowns minimum in this game. And I got to think, Gibson didn't score last week and they did put up 4 touchdowns. I got to think Gibson's getting in the end zone this week, especially looking at that Lions defense, we're kind of licking our chops there. DeAndre Swift says he's good to go. So that one does feel good. He didn't score last week. He did score last week, I believe. Am I crazy here? Yeah, he did. You get the rushing touchdown last week. So if the Lions are going to score, I feel pretty strongly about DeAndre Swift. Jamal Williams is there, but that's not an exciting pick. He could fall into the end zone, but plus 105 for DeAndre Swift. I'm going to take DeAndre Swift. There's Terry McLaurin at plus 130. I think that one's a little bit more. Terry McLaurin's never had more than like 4 or 5, maybe 6 touchdowns in a season. He catches one last week. I would bet that he does not score this week. So I'm probably looking more at Curtis Samuel. I'm looking at Logan Thomas, and I'm looking at Jahan Dotson. Now, I've kind of discovered something where, like, especially guys with these insane bets, if you want to say, yeah, I think one of Samuel and one of Dotson's going to score. Let's just say we take Curtis Samuel to score, and you put 20 on it. That's going to pay out 53. So you're up $33. You could bet on Jahan Dotson to score too, and say, I'm going to bet that one of Samuel or Dotson scores, because if one of them scores, I cover, and if Dotson scores, it's a big one. So let's say Dotson scores, but Curtis Samuel does not. I mean, you're turning 20 into 63, so you're still, profiting about $20, $23 if you did that bet. So I like both those guys. Again, even Logan Thomas, I think that's probably where my money is at, and one of these 3 guys will catch a touchdown this week. And then as far as the Lions go, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown caught the touchdown last week. So did DJ Chark. DJ Chark at plus 210. That one feels pretty good. But keep in mind, last week, I mean, Christian Kirk kind of dominated, that game from targets and receptions and slot yards. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, a sneaky play here. We'll probably look at his receiving numbers in a little bit here. I'm going to check out the passing props real quick. Carson Wentz at 249.5. I think Jalen Hurts threw it for 243 last week, so I'm interested in tapping that one. Carson Wentz should be busy, and I think the Commanders are going to throw the ball 35, 40 times per game. And again, because of the high-scoring nature that this one possibly could have, maybe more passing in this game. So I like the 249.5. People are hitting Jared Goff over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I think I'm going to do the same for Carson Wentz at minus 115. But both guys probably, again, going to throw 2 or more passing touchdowns. I think both of these are in play. Pass completions, pass attempts, I don't know if I love that. Both teams are expected to throw an interception. Passing plus rushing, will stay away from that. But let's look at the receiving numbers in this one. I guess the rushing first. Gibson, 57.5. I can't remember what he did last week. Let me take a peek at that. 58 yards last week against the Jags. I would think that he could hit that again here. So Gibson at 57.5 feels pretty strong. You got DeAndre Swift at 61.5. That one feels strong as well. I'm not going to dabble with JD, Wentz, or Goff. But I think you got to slap this Amon-Ra St. Brown 64.5. Again, Christian Kirk had over 100 yards going in the slot. He did he hit like a 49-yard catch. And even if you take that out, he still was over about 64.5 yards. So I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, probably the guy here. Curtis Samuel at 40. That's a pretty low-hanging fruit one. DJ Chark at 47.5. I like that one as well. You also got like Jahan at 42, Terry at 58. All of these seem pretty good here, but actually I like the Logan Thomas one at 30.5. I think that's the one that I would tap for the Washington Commanders. Again, he was extremely questionable going into that game, and the fact that they put him in that much with his snaps and his routes and his usage. I think he had 6 targets. He caught 3 balls for 45 yards last week. I would expect his role to grow. So Logan Thomas for me will take the Amon-Ra over, the Logan Thomas over in that one. And then the receptions total here, people are betting under 6 receptions. I wouldn't be surprised if he continues that streak of 7 or 8 receptions. You got Antonio Gibson. People are smashing the 2.5 here. People are smashing the Curtis Samuel over. People are hitting the DeAndre Swift over. Just a ton of overs in this game here. DJ Chark over 3.5. Terry McLaurin, though, people are betting under 4.5. So I'm starting to think Terry McLaurin might get kind of washed out by all these new targets that they have here. But that should do it for this one. I think this is a fun game. You want to get some bets and some DFS calls on this one. Moving on to a game that we probably won't spend too much time on, the Colts and the Jags. I mean, take your Jonathan Taylor free score touchdown. You could pair say you paired Jonathan Taylor with, say you do a Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor. I think that would be an interesting parlay. That would be a fun one. So I think that's probably one that I I would strongly consider. Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor. Other than that, I'm probably not putting any touchdowns on this game here. Again, I don't know the health of Michael Pittman Jr. James Robinson, probably the best guy for the Jags to score at plus 110, but I think I want another week of data points. The passing props, again, we don't know about Michael Pittman Jr. We've already ruled out Alec Pierce. Shaq Leonard's out for the Indianapolis Colts. So maybe Trevor Lawrence goes over 246.5 here. I'm trying to remember, what did Davis Mills throw for last week? Davis Mills throws for 240. And I think Trevor Lawrence in that passing offense can hit that. Trevor Lawrence last week, he threw for 275. So I'm kind of open to this one. It's plus 100. We could probably see a nice day there. Again, we expect the Colts to kind of be up and winning in this game. That one does make sense to me. No quarterback over 2 passing touchdowns. Let's look at the rushing receiving props here. James Robinson, 50.5. A little bit shaky on that one. Jonathan Taylor is going over 100 yards in this one. So if you want that low-hanging fruit, 100-yard game, minus 125. The receiving prop that I love here is Christian Kirk. Last week, let's take a peek at this. Last week in that game, I want to see, played the Houston Texans. Let's look at the fantasy points allowed here to wide receivers. So the Colts going up here. Where can't I find them? So they allowed 12 catches for they allowed a lot of catches, actually. 12 catches for 139. Chris Moore, 3 for 31. Brandon Cook, 7 for 82. Nico Collins, 2 for 26. I think Christian Kirk should be in for a good game here. Again, with his volume and his targets, 58.5 is low. I mean, again, Christian Kirk last week, he had that 49-yard catch, and he still ended up with, if we go to yardage here, Christian Kirk was 10th in yards last week with 117. You take away that 49-yard catch, he's still right at that 64.5 or that 58.5 prop. So I like Kirk here. Ingram's an interesting one with Shaq Leonard out. Again, we don't know about Michael Pittman Jr. I think ETN probably over 20.5. That one feels likely. He did, he kind of messed up a couple plays last week. I think he should be more involved. And then maybe Zay Jones over 42.5. But roll with Christian Kirk. People are taking the under on 5 catches. I'm going to take the over. I mean, the dude had 12 targets, 6 catches last week. He's going to be a 10 to 12 target guy per game. I think the over here at plus 120. If he hits 6, you're feeling pretty good about that. And again, last week he could have had more. But otherwise, I think that game's probably going to be one of the less exciting games here, unless you're a Jonathan Taylor fan. Moving on to the Bucs and the Saints. Now, I'm not sure how to get a good read on this game here. The Bucs favored to win by 2.5, but man, like their entire team is banged up. I think 80% of the offensive line for Tampa Bay is either hurt or out. Saints plus 2.5 feels pretty good. I think the Saints especially the Saints at home, and the Bucs are favored. That one it seems a little weird to me. So I think the Saints to cover 2.5 is probably where I'd play, and I wouldn't even expect. I would maybe take the money line on that too. Now, Leonard Fournette, the favorite Buck to score at minus 110. That one does have a good leg here. He didn't score last week, so maybe we see him score. But again, I'm not really getting a good read on this one because we don't even know if Alvin Kamara is going to play. Mark Ingram, questionable. And it's telling here that he's got the better odds for the touchdown because we just don't think Kamara's going to play. So if Kamara doesn't play, you're looking at Michael Thomas. You're looking at Jarvis Landry. You're looking at maybe Juwan Johnson, maybe even Chris Olave. I think that's the play here. But I think my nature of this one is to tend to be cautious. Let's look at the passing props on this one. They got Winston at 237, Brady at 271. Again, I don't really have a good read on this game. They have Tom Brady throwing 2 touchdowns, but again, he only scored 1 last week against the Cowboys. Offensive line's dinged up. Tom Brady has had some pretty bad games against the Saints. Let's actually look at this. If you go to FF Today, they have this cool player history. You just click on week 2, you click on your game, and it's going to show us in 3 games with Tom Brady playing against the Saints. Let me see here. He's played 5 games against the Saints. He's thrown 2 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 2 games with 0, though. So that's intriguing to me. He's only gone over 300 yards once in these games here. So what was that Tom Brady passing prop here? They have him at 271. I'd maybe take the under on this one. Again, he's only gone over it once. Saints defense at home, that one feels pretty good to me. So I think that's where I'm going to lay with. Looking at the rushing receiving props here, nothing in for the running backs yet because they're waiting for Alvin Kamara. This one's kind of hard. We kind of have to wait for Kamara, but I do think Olave, Landry, Michael Thomas, these guys are all in play for their yardage props. I think Landry's probably the guy. Landry had a really good game last week. Slot player, should be busy. He's probably going to lead the team in catches and targets again in this one. So I think Landry's where I'm at. And then people are hitting the Juwan Johnson over 20 yards here. So that's interesting. But there's just not enough info on this game yet for me. So let's move on to not my favorite game of the week, but it's the Panthers and the Giants. The Giants at -2, Panthers at +2. I don't have a good feel either way. Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey are both favored to score. Barkley at 145, McCaffrey at 135. I think for touchdown odds, those are probably the only two guys that I'm going to take. Let's look at the rushing receiving props because McCaffrey's at 63.5. I think they got to get him more involved, so that one feels pretty likely. Barkley is a little bit high for me at 75.5. He's going to need to break another one of those big. Basically, you're gambling. Does he break one of those big chunk plays here at home? It could be true. But when I was looking at these props here, the one that I liked the most was DJ Moore, 58.5. Again, he was kind of held in check by Denzel Ward last week. I think they're going to try and make sure he gets to eat this week. So I think that's the one over-under that I like in this one. Besides the touchdown odds for Barkley and McCaffrey, I think that's where I will lay. McCaffrey, Moore. Again, people are hammering DJ Moore over 4.5 receptions here. So that's in play here with our 58.5 yards. Let me look and see what else. I don't know. I don't have a great. Again, I think a lot of people are getting excited, a little too excited about the Giants' offense. They did beat the Titans are not a good team, and I think this is going to be kind of one of those another 20-20 type game for the Panthers and the Giants. So I'm not too excited about this one. Another game I'm not super excited about, unless you feel like really good about defense, is the Patriots and the Steelers. Interestingly, the Patriots are favored to win by 2.5 at this one on the road. So I don't know if I feel great about that. Nobody in this game has minus odds to score here. So again, I don't feel great about anyone. If I had to call a touchdown, it's probably Damian Harris or Ramondre Stevenson on the ground. Maybe you see a Deontay Johnson or I think Chase Claypool. They gave him 6 rushing attempts last week. I thought that was very interesting. We're not betting on any of the passing props here. Both quarterbacks under. People are smashing the under 1.5 for the passing touchdowns. The rushing receiving numbers, again, no Ty Montgomery in this one. So that's interesting. I think you're going to see more Damian Harris, more Ramondre Stevenson. I did think that Joe Mixon looked good last week against this team. So maybe the Patriots try to force the running backs here. The bets that I like, though, I mean, again, Ty Montgomery's out. You're going to see Stevenson and Harris catch more passes. And Harris is at 8.5 for his yardage. And Ramondre just went up a little bit. It was at 11.5, and now it's at 12.5. Interesting. So the money's coming in on Ramondre Stevenson, so they just boosted that one a little bit. Chase Claypool, I think he's going to win his slot assignment this week. So I'm kind of interested in the 41.5. People are hitting the over on 3.5. So if he gets 4 catches, he should be over 41.5 yards. So I think that one's the sneaky play here. Jonnu Smith is kind of low at 14.5. Freiermuth is really low, 37.5. I think he had 75 yards last week. But again, I don't feel great about this game. I mean, they got Deontay at 5.5. People are kind of taking the under on that. Maybe we just need another week of data points. People are taking the over on Pat 3.5. So if Pat catches 4 catches, he's probably going over 37.5. So I think you got to consider that one for sure. Let's move on to the Falcons and the Rams. I think this one's an interesting game. I think the Falcons are a little bit more competitive than people think. So I think I feel comfortable with +10 for Atlanta if you want to bet anything on this game. Not saying the Falcons are going to win, but I'm open to the +10. I think that's a tough cover. Cooper Kupp -205 to score. You could take Cooper Kupp, pair him with a Jonathan Taylor, and see what happens here. Other than that, I think the guy is Darrell Henderson. And then for the Falcons, I mean, I think Cordell Patterson's kind of a low-hanging fruit at +125. I don't mind that. Passing props here, we're not trusting Marcus Mariota. The money's coming in on Stafford to throw 2 touchdowns, so that's something to take note of. 274.5 for Stafford here. What did he throw for last week in that abysmal game here against the Buffalo Bills? He throws for 240. They got him at 274.5. Jameis Winston lit it up. What did Winston put up with this team? Winston put up 269, so I would think Stafford should go over. They've been talking about getting Allen Robinson more involved. Daryl Henderson, I don't feel great about any of these rushing props here. Looking at the receiving numbers, though, I mean, they got Cooper Kupp at 92.5. I think you could take that. I'd rather have that than the touchdown. Hendo at 18.5. What did Henderson get last week? Henderson with his volume. Daryl Henderson. I mean, he caught all 5 of his targets. And they got Henderson here at 2.5. Like, people are smashing the 2.5 here. That's kind of a free bet here. You got Cooper Kupp. People are smashing the over 7.5. Allen Robinson, the interesting guy here. People are taking the under 4.5. The one that I did not mind here was Kyle Pitts, 46.5. I think he's more involved this week. Again, last week, for some reason, they made him block more than we wanted to see. But last week, 7 targets, 2 for 19. I would expect him to get that 7, 8 targets again. Hopefully, reel in 4 or 5 catches. People are hitting the over on 3.5. So they're betting 4 Kyle Pitts catches. I would bet the over 46.5 yards on that one. But we'll move on. Let's take a peek here at the next game. Seahawks and 49ers. This one's intriguing to me. I think from a touchdown, I guess, well, just looking at this, I think the Seahawks could cover in this one. I mean, they put their best effort against the Broncos. I think they're fundamentally okay on defense. Their offense, again, is not going to score a lot of points. That's why it's only 40.5 implied in this one. But I do think they're going to be competitive. It is a division game. Those tend to be a little bit tighter scoring. They got Deebo Samuel here at -120 to score. That's kind of a low-hanging fruit. I expect him to either catch or run one in. But the guy that I like here, and it's DK Metcalf. I want to look and see what has DK done lately to this team, because I don't think the 49ers have a good secondary. So DK Metcalf, in 6 career games, he has 4 touchdowns. So you're basically saying you got a 66% chance of scoring here. So I don't hate this. I think this could work out very well for Metcalf. Again, last year, 5 for 60, 4 for 65 and a touchdown. The year before that, he went 12 for 161 and 2. And then his rookie year, 6 for 81 and a touchdown. So he's had one bad game in his career against the 49ers here. So Metcalf, again, he was hyper targeted last week. I think he actually might be my favorite Seahawk bet in this one. 7 targets, 7 for 36. I think in a PPR league, you're happy with that. So if he continues to see 7 targets or more, probably a good day here. We're not going to look at the passing props here. Geno and Trey Lance, let's stay away here. People are hammering the under 1.5 for both passing touchdowns. Looking at the receiving numbers, again, DK Metcalf at 56.5. I mean, he's had good games against the 49ers before. He's going to get 7, 8 targets. I think that's probably where I'll stay for the passing numbers. Deebo at 47.5. I actually think if you're going to bet anything on the 49ers side for this one, it's Brandon Ayuk, 40.5 last week. Let's take a peek here. Last week, Brandon Ayuk was their leading receiver, I believe, in yardage. Let me look at this. Where is Mr. Ayuk? Hard to find him. Brandon Ayuk. So he went 2 for 40 last week. He did get a rushing attempt too, but in a massive rain game, 2 for 40. Like he almost hit this last week in a shit condition. So I think Ayuk over 40.5. That's probably where I'll bet. In the rushing yards, I think I'll take the Trey Lance over 42.5 last week. What did he do? In a rain game, he rushes for 54 yards. So I think it's going to rain again this week. Take the Trey Lance, 42.5. I'm not betting on Wilson. I'm not betting on Penny with Kenneth Walker back. People are hammering the under Brandon Ayuk 3.5. People are taking the Deebo over 3.5, as well as so they're saying Metcalf's going to catch 5 balls. He's probably got a good odd here to go over 56.5. But again, I'm not super excited about this game. We'll move on to from the Bengals standpoint, this is an exciting game. Maybe not for the Cowboys. I think for touchdown odds, Joe Mixon didn't score last week. I would bet good money he's going to be on my list this week. Take Joe Mixon to score a touchdown. Again, the Cowboys, they let Leonard Fournette and that kind of shoddy Bucs O-line manhandle him. So I think Joe Mixon to score is probably very, very good. Very, very good chances here. And then, they got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins here next. Chase at 115 feels pretty good. He's been chirping about Diggs. I think he could win that matchup. But the guy I like here is T. Higgins. And I know he's coming back from a concussion, but he's got a lot going on right now. So he had a personal day on practice on Thursday. From what I believe, his father passed away last week before the game. So I think we could see T. Higgins put a big game on here against the Cowboys. So I'm going to go Higgins just in kind of that narrative. Jamar Chase, bet on, these three guys to score. I think that's where you go. And then just stay away from the Cowboys touchdowns. As far as passing props here, they have Joe Burrow at 269.5. I think that one's fair to hit over. People are smashing his over 1.5 touchdowns. So again, if he throws 2 touchdowns, that's kind of where you want to be. And let me just kind of clear this. I'm working on a theory here. And in a game where you have 2 players that you like and they're both plus odds to score here, like if we put 20 on Jamar Chase to score a touchdown, that's going to pay out $43. And if I put 20 on T. Higgins to score, that's going to pay out $49. So essentially, I could take both of those bets. If one of them hits, I profit. If they both hit, it's a big profit. So to me, it's kind of like a free bet. Like, sure, the profits aren't great if only one of them scores, but there's a really good chance that both of them could score. As Joe Burrow's favored to hit over 2 touchdowns. So I think Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, one of those guys will score, if not both. Let's look at the rushing receiving props here. Mixon at 71.5. I'll take that. Leonard Fournette ran wild against this team last week. I can't recommend betting on any Cowboy overs here. I think it's too unknown here with Cooper Rush to know what to do. They have Jamar Chase at 76.5. They have Higgins just at 59.5. I think I take the lower fruit there. Again, Higgins was on pace for a nice game before he got hurt. He had a big first quarter. And then Mixon, that's probably where I'll stay here. Chase, he's at 6.5. People are taking the under on that one. So if people are taking the under on that one, we're probably going to see more Joe Mixon in this game. So I think that's the player that you want here. Joe Mixon, he's only at 3.5. People are hammering the under here. Maybe he goes with 4 catches. So again, I think the Bengals take this one. Big Joe Mixon day. We'll see if T. Higgins can bounce back for our lineups in fantasy. Let's move it on to the Texans and the Broncos. I'm not super excited to watch this game. I think it's going to be good for the Broncos side here. I feel like Javonte Williams is probably going to get a touchdown. I feel like Melvin Gordon could also get a touchdown. It's 44.5, and the Broncos are favored to score. Let's see here. The Broncos, let me go back to the player prop tool. Broncos are favored to score 28 points. So that basically guarantees them 3 touchdowns, if not a 4th. So in that, you got Javonte, you got Melvin, you got Judy, you got Sutton. Those are the top 4 guys here. I think on the ground, I'm open to both running backs scoring. Judy got the touchdown last week. I think Cortland Sutton gets it this week. Again, Sutton had some chances on a couple deep balls, but Russell Wilson just had some poorly thrown deep shots to Sutton. So I think Sutton's probably the guy that's going to get in the end zone this week. We're not going to bet on a Texans touchdown. I think Russell Wilson at 246.5 is way too low. It's the home opener. They're going to have to try and get that sour taste out of their mouth here. I think he threw well over 300 yards last week. So Russell Wilson, 246.5, that feels way too low for me. And people are hitting the 1.5 over passing touchdowns. So Sutton, Judy, and technically Javonte Williams could catch a pass and run one in for a touchdown. He was heavily used as a receiver last week. We're not taking any of the Dameon Pierce, Rex Burkhead numbers. I think Melvin and Javonte both at 56.5. I want to see more data on that split. I think I'm more comfortable betting on the receiving numbers here. They have Javonte at 22.5 minus 130. That one intrigues me a little bit here. You got to hit the Sutton over. That's way too low for Cortland Sutton. He's probably going to average 70 to 80 yards per game this year. He had 74 yards last week on 4 catches. So Sutton's the guy that I like the most for the yardage prop here. Judy at 58.5 feels pretty nice too. If he catches 4 or 5 passes, he's in good shape. Looking at the reception totals, people are taking the under on Sutton 4.5. I think he hits probably 5 or more, and people are taking the over on Judy. So I think it's kind of both guys are probably going to have 4 or 5 catches minimum. Probably I'm going to bet the overs on probably both of these. Sutton I only have 4.5 and plus 115 seems kind of silly to me. And then people are taking the under on Javonte at 3.5. I'm going to take the over. He's going to continue to be used as a receiver. So plus 120 over 3.5. I know it's not going to be a competitive game as it was the other night, but you got to think they're still going to have to move the ball and they're still going to put up 3 or 4 touchdown drives here. So I like Javonte in this one. Let's move on to I think this is our final game here before the night games. And we're looking at the Arizona Cardinals and the Las Vegas Raiders. Cardinals, not in a good situation defensively. Raiders favored to win by 5. I think you could take the Devontae Adams touchdown here. Again, Pat Mahomes threw 5 touchdowns against this team last week. You're probably going to see the Raiders offense come alive in this one. Josh Jacobs, minus 140 to score. And they've kind of all but ruled out Brandon Bolden. I don't think he's going to play. So that's going to be potentially some more opportunities for him in the passing game, maybe some more snaps overall as well. And again, in a game where there's almost 52 implied points in this one. They're favored to win by 5. I think you want to play Josh Jacobs as your RB2 this week. I think he's going to be in for a busy day. So I don't mind the Jacobs touchdown. And then for the Cardinals, you're basically just saying Connor will score, or you're going to take that Kyler Murray rushing touchdown. I think those are the only touchdowns I would take in this one. Looking at let's look at the passing props. I'm going to smash Derek Carr. Derek Carr at 278.5. I'm going to take that over. What did he get? Like, he had an awful game last week. Derek Carr, that Chargers defense is for real. Derek Carr still threw for 295 yards last week against one of the better defenses in football. This one's going to go on the prop bet list. Derek Carr over 278. I'm taking that all day. People are smashing him over 2 passing touchdowns. So again, there's your Devontae. And I do think one of Darren Waller or Hunter Renfrow could be in for a nice day. In terms of the rushing props here, Murray at 30.5. I don't think he ran a lot last week. Maybe he gets a little bit more loose. Josh Jacobs, what did he do? He got the volume. He got 10 carries for 57 yards. I think he could easily hit that 62.5 in a game they're favored to win. The receiving totals here, Devontae 92.5. I think I'm taking that one. I think you got to take Renfrow over 47.5. I think there's a trend here in 2 games. The Chargers, they shut down Hunter Renfrow last week, and then the other night, Thursday night, the Chargers shut down Juju Smith-Schuster. They shut down MVS. They shut down the players that go in the slot. So I think you're going to see Hunter Renfrow pop this week, probably for 60-plus yards or a touchdown or something like that. So I like Renfrow here. Darren Waller, low-hanging fruit at 50. I think I believe these guys are good against the tight end, though. Let me double check. 21 fantasy points allowed. I believe the Cardinals were one of the best against tight end last year. Yeah, Arizona was they only allowed 2 touchdowns to tight ends last year. 611 yards, 59 catches. That's some very low stats for a full season. What did they do last week here? They played Travis Kelce, so they're going to be at the top of the list here. But again, if Kelce could eat, then Darren Waller could eat. So I think the Waller play definitely in play here. Reception totals, people are hitting the over on Hunter Renfrow. So if he catches 5 balls, he's probably going over 47.5. So I like that one as well. Devontae, a little bit too high for me at 7.5. I think he's probably good in that range. And then Darren Waller, 4.5 here. I think you're going to see, again, Derek Carr had big eyes for Devontae last week. I think you're going to see some more rollover towards Waller and Renfrow. Marquise Brown, people are hitting the over on 5.5 here. So that intrigues me a little bit. He's at 61.5. So I think Marquise Brown maybe pops off again. The Raiders defense isn't very good. So maybe Marquise Brown is the one guy that I would bet for the Cardinals. But other than that, I think that's where we will stop with that game. I did have, they didn't have everything up here for the Bears-Packers. Packers favored to win by 10. Packers need to show what they can do offensively. I think in this one, you're probably going to see Aaron Jones forced a ton of touches. I want to see him with 15 touches in this game. I want to see Dylan with 15 touches. So the chances of both guys scoring this week, I think, are pretty good. And then I did notice the passing props. People are smashing the over Aaron Rodgers 1.5 passing touchdown. So if he's going to throw 2 touchdowns, you got to think Robert Tonyan and Alan Lazard are his 2 favorite, most trusted targets. And again, kind of that bet that I was doing, like with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, if you bet on 2 guys to score in a game, the chances that one of them scores is pretty good, and you have you're going to profit. All you need is the Lazard touchdown, or you need the Tonyan touchdown, and in this one, the odds are pretty juiced here. So you could get a nice game from one of these guys, and all you need is 1 touchdown to profit. So I think that's a sneaky play here. I'm not betting on any Bears to score. I just don't think we can trust anything yet. In terms of the rushing receiving numbers here, You got to take Aaron Jones over 56.5, and I wouldn't be surprised if A.J. Dillon goes over his. I don't feel great about the Bears running the football. Maybe just people are taking Justin Fields over 35.5. I think that could be in play. Packers have a good pass rush. Maybe they make him uncomfortable in the pocket. Receiving totals here, we don't have everything in here. I wish they had an A.J. Dillon one. You got to take Lazard over 38.5. I think that's kind of ridiculously low. That's the low-hanging fruit here. And again, they don't have everything up in this one. Kind of the same thing about the Monday night games. We'll just click on these real quick before we get out of here. Touchdown odds. I mean, Diggs, Davis, low-hanging fruit with this one. I think Josh Allen gets his first rushing touchdown of the year. Again, they don't have everything in here yet. Gabe Davis at 57.5. I think that one feels fine. Stephon Diggs is only this is a smash. Stephon Diggs at 70.5. Come on, what are we doing here? And then the exciting game is the Vikings-Eagles. Dalvin at -145 to score. Wow, he's got the best odds here. I think you got to take the Justin Jefferson plus 110. That seems pretty good. And you got the Jalen Hurts rushing touchdown there. That's probably a good one. Take A.J. Brown to score. We had him on the list last week. He didn't score. He's probably going to score this week. A.J. Brown, 73.5. They got Justin Jefferson at 97.5. A.J. Brown, 5.5 receptions. J.J., 7.5. People are hitting the under on that one. So very interesting. I'm excited about this game. I think I'm going to I'll probably look at that game a little bit later yet as they get more information on practice reports and things like that. But that's going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to update the player props on the website. So if you're watching this later Saturday afternoon, just click on the link in the description and you'll see the bets that I put here. So I'm going to do that. You guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I'll be going live tonight around 7 o'clock Central Time to take any start sits that you might have. So if you guys want to hang out for that, come hang out. If not, have a great rest of your day. We'll see you later. Peace.